You are listening to The Best of Late Night Parents with your hosts Ted, Rich, and Dr. Michele. We'll be back live next week.
In the queue, we have Vowell, who is editor-in-chief of 12th Man Rising, and also the 12th Man Rising radio show, which is the sanctioned show on fansided.com for Seahawks, all Seahawks information. Because I want to get at Lee real quickly about the Colin Kaepernick. You know, there was so much talk about Kaepernick and the Seahawks and this and that. And I said, well, you know what? Possibly it could be a fit. Because you have Pete Carroll, who's, you know, kind of open to different ideas and suggestions and everything else like that. But it didn't work. It didn't happen.
Fell through.
So,
we will ask
yes.
Lee, because you think it fell through because of money?
I don't know.
Personalities?
I don't know.
But politics of it all?
The politics is so heavy that people aren't touching him.
Right.
They aren't touching him. But in the queue, we have none other than the CEO of the Happy Hour Network and editor-in-chief of 12th Man Rising and co-host of the 12th Man Rising radio show, which is the sponsored Seahawk show for Fansided. Lee, how you doing?
I'm doing well, sir. Thank you for having me on.
Welcome, Lee. Thanks for joining us.
Pleasure, Lee. It's a pleasure. Before we get started, Lee, got to put you out there, and I'm sorry, but as you know, we've known each other for many, many years. Is it true? Did you see The Rock and Zac Efron in Baywatch?
I did not. I haven't seen it. It's an excellent question. But I will be voting for The Rock and the Hanks ticket in 2020.
Gotcha.
I'll go ahead and put myself out there.
The Rock and Tom Hanks. I think Rich was talking about this a week or 2 weeks ago.
Yes, mentioned it.
So, Lee, we're going to jump right into it. Why is Colin Kaepernick still not signed with the team? And a follow-up question is, what happened last week with the Seahawks and Kaepernick? There seemed like there was a lot of jockeying. I'll just, is it image or did it come down to money? What's your take on that? Because I know you're inside with all your knowledge, your insider knowledge on everything Seahawks.
Well, first of all, it really just came down to money for the Seahawks. It definitely was not an image thing. Seattle's not a team with the players they have. With Pete Carroll, as you already mentioned, he would have control of that situation. He also allows the players to be who they want to be. So the Seahawks, it was really just a matter of money. They don't have that much cap space. I think Kaepernick ended up just wanting more money, which makes sense because, you think about it. If you're Kaepernick's agent and you see the teams that need quarterbacks now and that will need quarterbacks once the season starts due to injury, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to sign as a backup role with another team, whether it be Seattle or whoever else, because, you're going to take that step to make more money once the season starts, once quarterbacks start going down. Kaepernick's not a bad quarterback. He's going to fill a need on a team that needs a quarterback who has a chance to make the playoffs. So really it just came down to money as far as Seattle goes. The other aspect is, and you guys know this as well as I do. If Kaepernick was white, he'd already be on the team, probably no matter what his politics are or not.
Mm-hmm.
He gets made fun of because of him not singing for the national anthem. There's been white people who have not done that. Roseanne Barr, for instance, she made a gesture during the national anthem. Her show did just fine after that. And he gets a bad rap for growing out his hair. So people make a statement as far as the Afro issue. It just comes down to the fact that people see him as a dark-skinned person, and that's why he hasn't been signed with a team. He hasn't signed in Houston because it's a conservative city. He hasn't signed in Denver because it's a purple state. Seattle made sense, and a California team could make sense, but really the teams that need a quarterback are Houston and Denver at this point. And I don't think the Houston fan base, the local citizens there, would probably accept someone who's made the political statements he's made.
Right. So then, on just a semi-related note then, now, again, I am the non-sports guy here, fully and admittedly so. But, for a few years there, we heard, all I remember hearing from the sidelines, Russell Wilson, he was the man, he was awesome, great quarterback, and things have gotten quiet. Has he peaked?
Sorry, the phone is breaking up just a little bit. Could you repeat your question?
No problem. It's regarding Russell Wilson. I don't seem to hear things like I used to about Russell Wilson. Has he peaked?
Has he peaked? As a player, well, if he's peaked, then I hope he maintains that peak for the next 5 or 6 years because he's a really good quarterback. The issue last year was, he suffered some injuries that he had not suffered earlier in his career. He had a pec issue. He had a knee issue, an ankle issue because he played behind a porous offensive line, still played through it, still had a QBR over 90, still was a really good quarterback. If he's peaked, I think last year was not his best year. Mm-hmm. That doesn't mean he's taken a step back. I think just due to the injuries, he took a step back. He didn't have a consistent running game, especially early in the season, had some receivers that were hurt. I don't think peaked is the right word. I think that he just it was a step back for him because of the situation last year. He's still the quarterback who's going to have 100 QBR probably going forward as long as everybody moves offensively. So even if he played like he did last year and that was a peak year, it's still good enough for the Seahawks to make the playoffs and make a deep run.
Okay. So then another Seahawk-related question then. So Warren Moon says that the locker room, they have a splintered locker room in the Seahawks. Is there any merit to this or anything to the story that some members just haven't gotten over losing in Super Bowl 49?
Yeah, I think there are some players, Richard Sherman for one, who have not gotten over that last-minute loss to the New England Patriots in Super Bowl 49. And I kind of hope they don't ever get over it because why would you be satisfied? Okay, we made it that close. There's a lot of players on the Seahawks, well, in the NFL in general, but especially on the Seahawks, like Sherman, like Michael Bennett, who play with a lot of pride, who want to take that next step, who want to win every game, who play every down like it's their last down. In fact, Michael Bennett's mentioned that specifically. Is it a splintered locker room? I would think that any locker room made up of 20s and 30-year-olds in any sport, professional sport, where testosterone is running rampant through the locker room as it should, is going to be splintered in some way. Does that mean that the Seahawks, because of, maybe some players don't like Richard or Russell Wilson because they feel envious of his status, of him making all the money, making all the endorsement money. Maybe some people don't like Richard Sherman because of his outspoken attitude. But Does that mean they win fewer games? Probably not. Right. I would imagine every NFL locker room is splintered to some degree. You have 52 men. Most of them split up between defense and offense, and it's just how it is. I'm definitely not going to dispute Warren Moon, Hall of Fame quarterback, who's been in the locker room. I'm not discounting what he said, but at the same time, I don't think it really affects the Seahawks winning or losing any football games on the field.
Okay.
Lee, question about your hometown. Well, currently where you reside. Is Tennessee turned upside down because of the Predators?
They are, yeah. Tennessee's the state where I currently have lived in Seattle, but the state where I currently live. It's a great sports state. It's just not enough. I mean, Memphis is like a whole separate state. It doesn't exist. It's like Tennessee orbits around Memphis or vice versa. But Tennessee's always been welcoming to hockey as far as the Predators go. So yeah, super excited about that. Me personally, no, I'm a Blackhawks fan, but the state has been open towards the Predators, and they seem to be excited about the Stanley Cup playoffs.
It's pretty cool. Hey, one of my final questions for the evening. Seattle sports fans had a big scare this week. There's a lot of stuff going on at ESPN, and everyone keeps talking about things that are moving around ESPN, like kind of moving away from journalism versus, really gravitating towards the personalities, the yellers, the people who have great catchphrases. The Professor John Clayton went on Twitter and said that he had been laid off by ESPN. And I know the local folks in Seattle, there was a scare. Tell me, are you thankful about learning a lesson about the business behind radio stations, licensing stations versus owning a specific station? What's your thoughts on John Clayton and, Kiro and, the various stations that air out in Seattle?
Yeah, that's a great point you brought up about the radio stations, because even though one is affiliated with ESPN, they're not necessarily owned by ESPN. The local affiliate still has to raise the money for the salaries basically on their own, and they get a little kickback from ESPN. John Clayton, actually, as it turns out, he was one of that first wave of layoffs at ESPN. We just didn't really hear about it. Like Buster Olney got, one of those first 100 layoffs of big name people. John Clayton was part of that. It just didn't really come out until last week that he was laid off from ESPN. He had cut back quite a bit on ESPN anyway, as far as appearances. He's really stayed local with a lot of. I mean, he does the show from his house. I don't know if people are aware of that. He doesn't go into a studio every day, but he sits in there and dials in with an ISDN number, and it sounds really good. There's somebody in the studio. He has a producer in the studio, so he's probably in his pajamas while he's doing the show. In fact, he's made statements for that. But yeah, I mean, he is originally, for people who don't know, he's really originally from Pennsylvania. Covered the Steelers in the '70s, basically right out of high school. But he's been in the Seattle area since I believe it was '86. He started with Tacoma and has just become part of that, and then ESPN. So it was funny because when I was there when I was living there about 5 years ago, there was a poll as far as top 10 sports personalities in Seattle. He was the number one guy, like beyond any Supersonic, Seahawk. It was John Clayton.
Wow!
Because everybody knows who John Clayton is.
Of course.
So, yeah, exactly. So I'm very thankful that as you pointed out, the radio station has split up from the mothership at ESPN, because he's going to continue doing the show he does both during the week and on the weekend. And yeah, it's fantastic. I mean, Seattle without John Clayton, there'd definitely be a huge void from 10 to 12 Pacific time every day.
Hilly, we want to thank you for coming through, but tell us about the 12th Man Rising radio show, the site, all the above, the connection with Fansided. Let our listeners here know what's happening with that. Yeah,
absolutely. And I know you had Todd on earlier. Hopefully he didn't steal any of the thunder, but Todd is my co-expert at 12th Man Rising. 12th Man Rising is part of Fansided, which is part of Sports Illustrated, which is really owned by Time Magazine. If you check out Fansided, they have an app. They have 12manrising.com is the website for the Seahawks site. All that's tied into Time Magazine. So when you read my stuff, leave that a little bit less than you would someone who's not a hack. But, yeah, Fansided is an excellent site. A lot of good sites on there. And, yeah, you can check it out at 12th Man Rising. Check me out and Todd out at 12manrising.com. It's a great site. I appreciate being a part of it, and I appreciate being a part of your guys' show because, Late Night Parent is a much better podcast than what I try to do. With Kevin's the great podcast partner I have with Seahawks show at 12th Man Rising. I'm just there to butcher the English language, basically.
Not at all. Not at all.
Oh, man. Well, with that, Lee, this is, hey, we're going to try to have you on again next month and find out as we gear closer towards the NFL season.
Sounds good. I appreciate it. And go Jets, right?
Let's go Giants. Talk to you later, brother.
Thanks for joining us, Lee.
All right, thanks.
Rich, like many African Americans of my generation, and of my generation is also your generation.
Yep.
As a New Yorker in my 40s, I grew up without a gun in the house.
Yes, especially it depends where. Especially if you lived in the 5 boroughs, having
Correct.
a firearm in the home, unless you were employed in some kind of either the police or a protective agency, or you were a store owner and it could prove that you were using lots of cash back and forth to the bank, it was next to impossible to get a firearm, especially a pistol, within the 5 boroughs.
To my parents, gun ownership was politically unacceptable, but more morally wrong. And a lot of times, along with that, there was some form of trouble or tragedy. But Rich, during that same timeline, many folks in the South had a different tradition.
Yes, completely different tradition. In the South, having a gun is just like having pocket change.
Wow.
I mean, it is. Let's face it. I mean, besides the fact that in the South, we'll go along with long arms as well. You go to hunting, and hunting is just a part of life in the South and in the West and pretty much everywhere except the coasts. But also, in the South, having a handgun for protection is, you wouldn't walk out the house without it.
So in the South is a different tradition, and where black families, many of them fresh from the farms and the hunting rifles and sport to an extent with self-defense. Mm-hmm. Many gun owners buy their first guns and begin practicing at the gun range,
right,
wondering if the thought process was perhaps the Second Amendment is the black man's ultimate sign of full citizenship.
That sounds like it should be. I mean, granted, we're all citizens anyway, and, there's all kinds of debate over the Second Amendment itself. But, every citizen of these United States has the right to bear arms.
That is true. And for the previous 8 years,
mm-hmm.
I heard one side saying, they're going to take our guns away.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness. He's going to take our guns. Well, he's out of office now.
Yes, he is.
So there was something that happened. There were a couple of big events. One, Donald J. Trump becoming elected president.
Yep.
And the incident that was streamed across the world, Philando Castile.
Yes.
Black gun owner, card-carrying member.
Yep. Legally carrying a firearm at the time of the event.
And I thought it was apropos to bring on a fellow African-American NRA, card-carrying member,
yep,
Mr. Ian McDonald. So, Ian, want to welcome you to the show.
Hello. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Loud and
Ian,
clear.
How are you?
How you doing?
Excellent.
So
I just want to, before you go into it, I want to discuss, just briefly lay something out there.
Okay.
That was very germane to a comment that you made earlier. Individuals were screaming and crying that they're going to take our guns, but gun ownership actually skyrocketed during the Obama years.
Yes, it did.
Yes, it did.
It really did.
Yes, it did.
So quite to the contrary, the Smith & Wesson, Springfield, they actually would prefer if President Obama remained in office because they sold more units.
Yep. There were more licenses applied for through the FBI background check in those 8 years, in each of those 8 years, than ever before.
More important than background checks and licenses to carry, because there's a distinction between a license to carry and the ability to purchase firearms.
Yes, that's true.
In many states, you don't even need your license to purchase a firearm. You can purchase because you are a registered resident of that state.
Mm-hmm.
Now, to carry your gun, and let's go in another direction. You have some states that are considered open carry states,
right,
where there's no need to even apply for a firearm license. If you're carrying your weapon exposed, you're within your rights.
Right.
So let's not even count the applications for concealed carry permits. Let's just talk gun sales.
Right.
Gun sales, boom. Yeah.
That's true. Well, even when you make that pistol purchase, just the sale, not even the concealed carry permit, but you still got that FBI background, the background check at purchase time.
Yes, that you get. Yes.
And that's the
which
number.
I'm all for.
Yes, I agree. By the way, I am also a card-carrying NRA member myself. And so I fully understand, the point you're making and those issues, because it's true that sales went up, people were scared, they bought more guns. But so as an African American, for some black gun owners, it's a tough question, and that question being, can African Americans be reasonably expect to be covered by the Second Amendment in a country where, let's face it, there's still plenty of racist rhetoric, racist attitudes, racist actions? What do you think? Can we feel that we can honestly be covered and protected and be able to exercise our rights under the Second Amendment?
Okay, well, the ability to do something and the right to do something are two different things.
Completely.
As a United States citizen, you have the right to bear arms. You have the right, according to your state, city, local jurisdiction, you have the right to every right that's available to any other person. Now, the ability to utilize that right, or the ability to exercise that right, is all in the hands of the law enforcement of that particular area.
Right.
That's where it gets kind of sticky. And there are several videos online where this is very clearly evident. Where one in particular, there was a white gentleman, and he said, "I'm going to walk down the street with the AR-15 in a sling on my back." He walks. The police they come to him and they talk to him, but the approach that they came to him with was as if he wasn't a threat.
Right.
But then now the black gentleman did the same thing. The officer stood back about maybe 15 yards, exited his vehicle, holstered his weapon.
Here we go.
Pointed his weapon at the guy and made him lay down on the ground.
I'm familiar with the video.
Before he even approached him. So it's the perception is where the problems come in. Because, again, a law is a law is a law. But the perception of the law in the hands of the individuals who are there to enforce the law is where the problems come in. And that's just a whole nother ball of wax that we could sit here talking about forever.
Right.
But let's just try to stay on topic. That's where the issues come into play.
I agree.
So I have a listing here that the Washington Post has found that unarmed black men are 2.5 times more likely to be killed by police than unarmed white men. But there are no...
Perception again.
Say it again?
Perception.
Okay.
The perception is... Now, I hate to keep cutting you off. But
No. Go ahead.
All right. Here's the thing. If a law enforcement officer stops a vehicle and he approaches the vehicle, it's the perception that he takes is how he's going to approach that vehicle. So now he's going to approach the vehicle. Again, I'm just speaking generally. I'm not speaking specifically. I'm not trying to paint broad brush law enforcement because I have a lot of family in law enforcement, which is very funny. But they approach the car driven by or containing black individuals as if they are the threat. But their own FBI statistics shows that who is more likely to shoot a police officer?
Right.
A white male.
Right. No, it's true. It's true. It's perceptions.
And when you put those statistics, when they tell you a statistic, African American is 90% chance getting killed by another African American. It's true because you will tend to get killed or accosted by the people you're surrounded by.
Right.
But the flip side to that is 81 point something % of white people are killed by other white people.
Right.
But that's the other side of the coin that's not put out there with the statistic. So I mean, it's very interesting where you sit and you allow somebody to talk and you say, okay, well, you said this, but here's the rest of that statement that you failed to give. But again, it's all in perception because An officer has no clue of the intention of an individual who he's stopping. So I have all respect for them being apprehensive and being cautious, because you have no idea who you're approaching. But if it's showing that you're approaching a certain demographic differently than another demographic, that's the pure definition of bias.
Right. And that's the issue that we have at its core.
That is the exact issue.
But that again,
I mean, I'm a black guy. I've got into more arguments with black people than white people.
Right.
But am I? But because I grew up around black people, so it was very, very unlikely for me to have an argument with a white guy growing up in East New York, Brooklyn.
Right. Yeah.
It's not gonna happen. It's just the reality of it.
No, that's understood. Hey, you're listening to Late Night Parents. Rich Valdez, Ted Hicks. We're speaking with Ian McDonald, and we are talking about the Second Amendment.
But we can segue into issues with firearms or the reality is a gun, a rifle, a knife, a brick, anything by itself is not deadly. It's the intention of the individual using it that makes it a deadly weapon.
That's true.
If we just for some strange reason was able to snap our fingers and every firearm on the planet disappeared, the stabbings would go up.
Right.
people are going to do these things. If we took away all the knives, then people would start hitting each other with maces and clubs, because that's what we did. It's just now the firearm is where it's at.
Ian, as a wrap up question.
Yes.
I think one of the questions we initially asked. So, as a question to you, as a black gun owner, does the Second Amendment apply to African Americans? Yes or no?
It most certainly does apply to us. It most certainly does apply to us, and it is incumbent on any individual that wants to exercise his Second Right Amendment to go about it the right way and demand that his right or her right is respected. It's in black and white, for lack of a better word,
literally.
a better term. Yeah, it's literally in black and white. So if you go into court and you say, well, pursuant to statute, blah, 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 I have the right to do this. It's up to them, when I say them, meaning the people telling you it's not your right, to prove you wrong. Now, again, that's in the court of law. But then now, in the real world, the perception of individuals dictates what happens.
Right.
Which is totally contrary to law itself.
Right. Law is not supposed to be based upon perception. Law is based upon the rule and the actions taken thereof.
Exactly. But if you look, it's all over the news, it's all over the internet, it's all in the paper, and you see for yourself the bias of the legal system. So theoretically, yes, it does apply to us, but the application of that law and the application of that right is where the difference lies.
Yeah.
And individuals who continually flout these laws against you and are allowed to get away with it is why it continues to take place. Nobody's going to change unless they either A, want to, or they're B, forced to. And if these officers or if the legal system isn't forced to, does it want to change? Right. Not going to.
Gotcha.
So all of these things kind of segue and they lead to bigger problems and bigger issues.
No, that's fair. That's a fair answer. I will tell you this much.
Yes.
This is the first time that you're on Late Night Parents, but definitely, I think this is a great starting point. Because this conversation, this dialogue needs to continue. Because, I mean, as you know, you and I have been friends 20 plus years. And this topic has come up privately amongst us and some of our friends. So I like I said, I thought it was appropriate for you to provide subject matter on it, because, you know, it's kind of like a lot of times people are just speaking from emotion.
Right.
But we definitely want to thank you for joining us, Ian, and we look forward to having you on in the very near future.
Most definitely. And before I go, I would just like to leave with, I am definitely a proponent of people expressing or exercising their Second Amendment rights. But there also has to be the responsibility involved with it.
Yes.
I myself, I've taken NRA courses. Mm-hmm. I've gotten certified. Mm-hmm. I practice and utilize safe methods of handling firearms. Anybody around me, I make sure they're doing it, or I'm like, you can't handle this firearm around me.
Right.
Because along with a right comes a responsibility. And the responsibility to maintain your firearms within the laws that are prescribed to it. And if you do that, then I'm all for every and anybody who is legally able to obtain firearms. If you're on a no-fly list, no, you shouldn't have one. If you have mental issues, no, you should not have one. It's that simple. If you're a career criminal, you shouldn't have one.
Right.
So gun laws really should be about common sense.
You hate to use that word.
As opposed to furthering an agenda.
Yeah, you hate to have to use that common sense
it's about furthering an agenda now.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Ian, we want to thank you once again.
Thank you. I appreciate coming on.
Now that people are outside and starting their exercise routine, increasing their walking, Theodore.
Okay.
I think it's important that we talk about protecting your skin.
She called you Theodore.
Yeah, I know. You started that. Protecting your skin. You tell me.
Very important.
Protecting your skin. And I think I saw something on the Today Show. You guys watch the Today Show?
No.
Hardly ever.
No? What are you guys doing in the morning?
During the week? Getting on the train to go to work?
In the morning, I'm usually trying to get the kids out the house and do a little exercise.
Oh, okay.
Train a bit.
Okay. All right. I mean, I don't know.
It's a no-win situation for you today, buddy.
No. Well, tell us about melanoma.
Well, melanoma is common but not common. It is one of the types of cancer of your melanocytes. And the thing about it, there's like over 87,000 people who have been diagnosed with it, usually annually. But the thing is it's not a common cancer, but it can metastasize. So the segment that you saw on the Today Show talked about a young woman who had a lesion on her shoulder that ended up metastasizing. And she died shortly after giving birth, and she ended up giving birth early. The thing is that they're talking about one of the risk factors is if you have what your body is immunosuppressed. That's one of the rare things that can happen where your immune system doesn't function the way it should. And the dermatologist that they had spoken to, who was not involved in her case, had mentioned that as a result of her being pregnant, her body might have seen that as an immune compromised situation, and therefore that allowed the cancer to spread a lot more aggressively as opposed to if she wasn't pregnant.
Interesting.
And it can metastasize. That's one of the cancers that does. It's very, very aggressive. Matter of fact, I've seen a couple of cases in practice where it has gone to the lungs. to the brain, and it's a major thing to look at, and that's why it's so important that you protect your skin.
Right.
Because growing up, I know none of us really used any type of sunblock at all.
No.
My mother was a nurse. Yeah, I was shiny and slippery jumping into the pool.
Oh gosh, so you're one of the few.
Yeah,
but majority of us, there was no type of skin protection at all, and that's something that we need to make sure that we're instilling in our children, to put on the sunblock before you head outside. And if you're in the pool, or if you're at the beach, or you're out playing basketball, or you're doing any type of physical activity, if you start to sweat, dry up and put on some more, because you're increasing the likelihood, if you don't cover up, of having some type of cancer. A lot of times when we look at our skin, we are not trained, when I say we, I'm talking about the average person, to recognize any type of abnormality. So if we see something, we're like, oh, it's okay, but we need to know the A, B, C, D, and E of checking your skin. But first and foremost, if you see anything that you suspect is abnormal, make an appointment to see the dermatologist. That's the main thing.
Okay.
And A is any type of asymmetry of the lesion. B is to check the borders. You want to see if there's any type of irregular borders, because if there's irregular borders, that could be abnormal. C is circumference. It should be smaller than the size of a eraser, but there are cases where melanoma is smaller than the size of an eraser. D is diameter. You want to make sure it's not an extremely large diameter. And E is evolving. It's getting worse. It's changing. So it's A, B, C, D, and E that you want to make sure that you're watching out for. If you have a family history of melanoma, that increases the likelihood of you having melanoma. And it happens more times, 20 times more common in whites than blacks. But even African Americans can get it. And usually it's in unusual places like fingernails, toes, fingers, hands. But it can occur in any part of the body.
Okay.
And in men, it's usually like the back, the shoulders, the chest. And in females, it's usually the legs.
Interesting. So now it's funny. I mean, you mentioned how quickly it can metastasize, but it doesn't always. So is that why you'll hear people say, "Oh yeah, I went to the doctor and had something removed," and they just have a little Band-Aid on, and the doctor cut off whatever was there, but that's the end of it, hopefully.
Yes, right? It can be. But then there are other types of cancers that can occur. But melanoma is the one that happened to this young lady,
right,
that you saw on the TV show. And that's one of the ones that really, when it metastasizes, it's serious.
So what would you say to all those out there that go into these tanning salons and sit there under the lights for whatever minutes on end?
UV exposure is one of the risk factors. And you need to stop going to the tanning salons.
You remember that mother a few years ago
who was
extensively
yes.
like and I think at one point she was putting her child exposing her child to it, and it was just like ugh.
Yeah,
you only hope that nothing comes of that.
Yeah, so you have to be very careful. Very, very careful. If anything, you want to change your color, you can do a little spray tan.
Wear that SPF 10,000 and
oh my goodness.
Or just use a little bronzer.
A little bronzer. A little color here and there.
As we wait for our initial guest, you have something on the desk here.
Yes, I do.
Would you like to talk about it?
Sure. So, recently I went to the PepCom meeting in New York City. This was about 3 weeks ago, maybe 4 weeks ago. And one of the vendors that was at PepCom was Meme Memory. That's MEEM Memory. Meme. And they have a device which is available for iPhone, for Android and iPhone, which allows you to just plug your phone in.
Okay.
And charge it.
Okay.
And automatically back it up.
Back it up to where?
Backs it up to the device. There's a memory stick within here. Backs it up to the device. The first time you plug it in, it goes online, downloads the app, updates the firmware on the device if it needs upgrading, runs a full backup.
does it prompt you to download the app, or does it do it automatically?
It prompts you because you gotta get permissions. It doesn't just go out and do it, but it leads you to the store or to the site, so you can just click, install, and go.
It's a free app, or is it 99 cents?
Free app.
Okay.
So it's included with your purchase of the device.
I do remember seeing something on latenightparents.com.
Yes, I did put something out about this because this is one of those things where why hasn't someone done this before?
Right. So does it back up the entire phone?
Backs up the entire phone. And get at least for the Android version, you can do 3 devices.
I know someone that could use one of those.
Shots fired.
If she wasn't here.
Getting a note right now saying, I could have used it, couldn't I?
I could have used that.
Lets you back up 3 devices. Lets you choose what you want to back up.
Okay.
All right. Then makes it very easy to just connect into the device, retrieve whatever you want, browse the items. You can copy from one device to another using this device if you like.
So it's kind of like a localized version of Carbonite, Carbon Copy, Cronus.
A localized, it's even more so, it's just like a localized or an external hard drive.
Right.
Plug it in, the interface goes. Actually, I'll show it to you later on. I won't.
How large is the hard drive?
This one is a 32 gig.
32 gig. Okay.
They're available in. I saw 16s, but I think that might have been an older version. So now it's 32, 64, and 128.
All right.
Online, ranging from $49 to $69, I believe it was, on Amazon at least.
I know we're not endorsing the product or anything like that, but if you had a chance to go thumbs up, thumbs sideways, thumbs down.
Thumbs up.
Thumbs up.
Thumbs up for sure. It just makes all the sense in the world. It's quick, it's painless, you can schedule it or every time you plug it in, it'll do it. So, for me, this has replaced the charger that's by the bed. Mm-hmm. Plug it in when I get home, but just before I go to sleep, plug it in, it's back to the phone, and the backup the first one, of course, takes the longest.
Right.
But on my phone, which I've had now for almost 2 years, the entire backup is done in like 5 minutes.
Okay. So the initial backup is done, and then it looks for incrementals, or...
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, and it's encrypted. The backup is encrypted, so you get to put a pin in, a 4-digit pin.
Okay, I was going to ask you about the security, just in case if I
gave this to you right now, you wouldn't be able to do anything.
Perfect.
10 tries, locks the device out.
Perfect.
And then you can go to a link on their website. It's in the documentation at least. If let's say you forgot your pin, something like that. And I didn't try it because I didn't forget my pin, but they do have a means, I guess, that you can validate that you're the legitimate owner and get back into the device.
So you did have to register it?
Yes, it's part of the process.
Okay. All right. Well, I definitely think we should speak with our good friends at Meme, maybe do a giveaway on site, or
that's a great idea.
During the show, or just on Facebook.
That's a good idea. I will reach back out to them.
Or even on Twitter or whatever like that, Our next featured guest, Gabrielle Van Rij, who's in the queue, the kindness expert, inspiring organizations to tap into the power of kindness, the most underutilized skill in today's world. And we say to all, dare to be kind. Gabriella, how you doing?
Hi, I'm fine. Thanks for having me.
Welcome back, Gabriella.
Well, I'm like you. I don't know a lot about Rob Kardashian.
Okay.
I really don't. So I have to honestly say that I don't know about his case. But you know what? We could talk about any case.
Yes.
Because the truth is, we could talk about myself and a friend.
Right.
And it would be the same, right?
It would.
The thing is, people are people. And I think the first thing we need to say about this is, obviously, it's unacceptable. That's kind of what I want to say first. It's unacceptable to put pictures out there to humiliate another human being.
That's true.
Now, I also read that it's actually illegal in California, right?
Since 2013, in 38 states, including the District of Columbia, that law has been instituted.
Okay, I think that's terrific, by the way. So I think it should be federal, it should be every single state, it should be the world, actually. But, so that's one thing. It's unacceptable that we do that.
Correct.
But I want to go to a point that, first of all, neither you and I can look into that relationship because we don't know. We don't really know the background. We don't know what played out. And even if you're friends with them, you would still not know.
Right. True.
Because the truth is, it's between him and her. So, but how do these things escalate? See, I think neither is innocent in this case. And I will always say that because I will honestly say that people do horrible things to each other. Mm-hmm. And if I understood correctly, it's an off and on relationship. So you and I know as an outsider that on and off relationships are quite volatile.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. So I would say it looks right now as if Rob Kardashian is a bully, and definitely an online bullying, and as if Black Chyna is a victim. But I would bear to differ here because we really don't know what happened. We don't know who started reacting to what first. But this is how everything escalates online. It's when we don't do anything else except action-reaction. And this is basically what I teach, right, in my third book. This is a perfect example of what not to do. But the honest truth is we think, and gosh, I wish Rob and Chyna could hear this, most of us think that the world is out to get us. And I always say that we're not that interesting. And so they're not really that into us, you know. Okay. We're not that important. So having said that, that's kind of where the issue lies, right? It's this continuous of he said, she said. And if you spend your life reacting to the other human being and to the rest of the world around you and to everyone who's posting on social media, that's a pretty exhausting life. Yes. And I'm not surprised that most people are just kind of overwhelmed because nobody knows where it started anymore. And so I really request people to step back and to see if this is actually worth it. Is it worth it to be right and to hurt the mother of your child? Because no matter what they think of each other, they are parents. Mm-hmm. And I think maybe someone on social media should maybe post that. Your parents.
That's true.
Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was going to say you also wonder, and I use the term loosely, but you wonder how much of this is just due to their celebrity status. It seems with that family name, you never know what's real, what's not, and what's coming out here. So you take that also, not necessarily with a grain of salt, because again, the allegations, the actions, if he's done this without permission, then he's, I would say, sure, in the wrong there. It's illegal. You shouldn't do it, period. But you also wonder, how much of this is just to get some more ratings and get people to watch a TV show.
That's true too, but the real thing is he did commit.
Yes,
he did go over the line.
Yes,
right. I mean, Rob should not and cannot post pictures that were taken without any consent.
Correct.
I mean, that's number one. And number two is, even if we don't know, even if it was for ratings, the world is watching you. Mm-hmm. So if you have a name that means something today in the social media world, you have even a bigger task in living up to your name, I would say. You and I could maybe do something and then say, oh, mea culpa, I'm so sorry, I shouldn't have done that. Mm-hmm. But I can tell you that I can't do it anymore. I mean, can you imagine if I did that? People would not take me seriously as a kindness expert.
It's true.
You have to walk your talk, and you have to kind of remember, and I think it's maybe easy for Rob Kardashian to forget this, but they have all these fans, and some fans are very young.
Yes,
exactly.
And so they need to remember that every single fan on their Facebook sees this. And online, social media is not there to vent the humiliation of any any other human being, period, no matter how angry you are.
Yeah.
That's really my bottom line here. We need to learn that. We need to learn it face-to-face, but we need to learn it online because etiquette has just gone out of the window.
That's true.
I mean, there is no etiquette anymore, and everyone sets the bar higher. So if this is the bar already, that it's okay to do this, what's next?
Well, Gabriella, I will jump in and say etiquette and the moral compass went out, the window with the 2016 presidential candidacy.
I knew you were going to go there.
But here's a question that I have towards you and also with Rich is, even when you say the name revenge porn, should our legislative branch focus on changing the label and focusing on the harm? I mean, is revenge porn a form of sexual abuse? Is it a sexual crime? Because
I think any form of putting, I don't like the word,
right?
Because I wouldn't want the younger generation to learn what that is.
Right.
See, I think again we're setting the bar with all these words, but to me, it's abusive. It's explicit images that are abusive for the person that's in the picture, right? And it is a true humiliation. I would actually like the word humiliation somewhere in these wordings, because it is a humiliation for Chyna. Now, if she wants to post a picture of herself naked, you're allowed to do that. Right? But not someone else. Besides the fact what he wrote on it, I'm sure, is actually worse probably than the picture, right? So, but I think the whole thing about this revenge, it gives other people ideas.
Yes.
And that is not good.
No, not at all.
See, because this is what we all need to keep in mind. There's one thing we need to keep in mind. Neither of them are winning here. Neither of them are happy with each other. They continue to only be reactive. She might be the victim at the moment and he the bully, but those roles change and intertwine when you have a relationship that's abusive, because this is abuse from both sides, to me.
I would also say neither one is winning, and everything's being indexed for when that child grows older. 10, 12, 15 years old, and they pull up this information, it can't be scrubbed.
Nope.
And they're going to be able to pull up and say, oh, my two parents were acting like a bleep. And that's how they were acting.
Yes.
And granted, what he's done is, punishable as a misdemeanor with up to 6 months in jail.
But you can't take it back.
But you can't take it back.
Right.
You can't take it back, but he can't undo the harm to her either anymore.
Oh, totally.
Right. Yeah, but
and to his own child.
That's true.
And I think that's where we really need the Dare to Be Kind to become like a sort of etiquette stamp on social media, where we say, hey, folks, think first. Please think. I know you're really upset. I honestly think that volatile people, and apparently we know a few, and some have are in public service.
Yes.
We should take their phones away for a day.
Yes, we should.
Just a day?
Because
I think every day.
Yeah. I think on top of it, to tell you the truth, I wholeheartedly believe that the person regrets it once it's out there. I actually believe that.
You hope.
I believe that the person afterwards goes, what did I do? But then, again, just like I said, it becomes a reactive state, and then you start reading everything, and you get even angrier.
Yes. So true.
Right?
So true. Oh, my goodness.
So truly, the lesson to take out of this is that nobody wins when you even start this, and that if you can't say it out loud, then you shouldn't put it on social media either.
Right.
That's true.
If you wouldn't say this to someone else, why would you put it on social media? But I think we keep forgetting that the bar our bar of
Can't get in the
values keeps being pushed and pushed and pushed. And what is really interesting, I just wanted to kind of say that, CNN shows these documentaries like the 90s, the 70s, the 80s.
Yes.
And I'm kind of hooked. I really love watching that because sometimes you forget what happened a decade ago, right?
Yes.
And one of the things that I notice in these decade series is whatever happened in the 60s, they already thought our grandparents thought we were going to go to hell, right? Because we did things that weren't good.
Yes.
We had long hair, or men had long hair, or, hippie clothes. So I'm just saying, but I truly feel that there's a difference with a grandmother telling their grandchildren that they're going to, that they're really bad because they're listening to rap. I think that is different than our true norms, our values that keep being pushed a little bit and pushed a little bit. And I think that's where we need to talk actually much more. And we don't talk about that part. What can we do to actually change that around? And it's us, meaning we, the adults, have to do it. The kids are not in charge here. We need to do it.
It's true.
And if we do it, and we live by example, if I had a 15-year-old kid that saw this whole thing between the Kardashian and Chyna, it would give her or him permission to do it.
It's true.
That's what they're thinking. So it's up to us adults. What can we do? When we actually put that on the news and not what happened between Rob and Chyna, then I'm in. Because then we're actually talking about a solution.
Gotcha.
Right?
Yep.
So right. Gabriella, we want to thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
And tell us best ways to get in contact with you.
Okay, really easy. You do the hashtag Dare to Be Kind, and you will find me everywhere. I won't bother you with my last name. And Gabriella.global, and you will have my website.
Got it. Gabriella?
As always, it has been a pleasure speaking with you. Thank you for joining us again.
And we look forward to speaking with you shortly on these type of topics that come up with social media and proper etiquette and all the above. And we are.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome. We will dare to be
Bye-bye.
kind. Bye-bye.